worked in 6 countries, all the way from Egypt, Sudan, North and South, Tanzania, Kenya, Somalia, and then in Asia, a similar number of countries, actually a little bit more. And in all those countries, we have adopted a different identity. In Kenya, the identity we adopted was CAPYEI Youth Empowerment Institute. We use a model called Basic Employability Skills Training. It's a summary of linear activities that have been proven to be sufficient to help somebody from a vulnerable background to transition from unemployment to employment. Actually, we call it employability because it can be either a job or it can be self-employment. Some of the milestones we have had in this country as CAPYEI have to do with the partnerships that we have been able to build with funding organizations. And I am honored that we call them partners because for us they have been true partners, and no more so than the MasterCard Foundation, represented by YEI here. We started working with the MasterCard Foundation in 2011, and they gave us a grant of $5 million and told us, go and prove that this model can work. Essentially, they were telling us you can make mistakes. The only condition was we had to share, and we had also to show that we were learning from those mistakes, and we did make mistakes. And one of the things that happened between 2011 and 2016 was, for us then, a unique arrangement where we had an external learning partner. That's an organization whose job was to look over our shoulder as we implemented the program. This year, the one thing that has been unique is we have combined 2 studies. The learning partner study, we also decided to make one more change, decided to make it thematic. So every year, we invite the learning partner to look at a different slice of the challenges we are foreseeing or we are facing or you are facing. In fact, some of the theme for this was partly informed by the discussion we had last year. Some of the suggestions that were raised here were simply this, that no matter what we do, it seems that young women are being left behind. Despite all our best intentions, they are being left behind. CAPYEI has very good data that shows that as far as access is concerned, we are able to reach more young women than young men. But if you look back 2, 3, 4, 5 years, where are those young people who go through our program? They're not at the same place. And it's quite clear that the young women are not able to utilize what we are offering as well as young men. And of course, this is not going to work for the country. If we insist on leaving half of our population behind, then anything we do, no matter how well-intentioned, it's not only going to work, perhaps. It's not going to really work, let me put it that way. So we requested our learning partner to spend 1 year looking at our model, looking at our program, looking at our approach, and let us know what is it that we could do, what is it that we are not doing, and what is it we are doing that maybe we could share with other members because we know that you face the same challenges we had from you last year. And then in 2016, we entered into another partnership once again with the GIZ, which has gone into a number of iterations actually. One of them was a program with the European Union, which would be perhaps worth the subject of a whole workshop if we ever got time to do something like that. It was extending our model now to reach populations that are even more marginalized. We talk about commitments to the vulnerable, but vulnerability, as you know, is not equal. There are people who are vulnerable, there are people who are super vulnerable. And one of the targets was radicalized young people, including the ones we train in Lamu. And again, we've been able to show that that works very well. Then a program called SOGA, in which we were challenged to look at the oil and gas sector and find out in which ways young men and young women could benefit from opportunities arising out of the emergent oil and gas sector. Oil sector for Kenya, but SOGA covers gas in Tanzania, mainly Mozambique and other countries as well. And that took us to an area again where we had not been able to go before. So we were able to work through GIZ in Turkana, we were able to work in Mandera, we were able to work in Lamu, Tana River, all those parts of this country that are considered no-go zones, mostly because of insecurity. And again, the results have been the same. And we are at the point now where our next phase will probably be closing down most of our direct delivery program and focusing entirely on our indirect delivery program. We have been able to train 35,000 young people directly to date, and by the time we finish our programs, will probably be around 60,000. But we are not aiming to go to 100,000, 200,000, 300,000. We don't think that is going to get the results our youth need fast enough. There are going to be challenges. It's going to be a difficult journey. It's not going to be easy at all. And one of the biggest challenges we have to address is inclusion. It is inclusion. We've got to figure out a way in which we get the majority of our youth who are from marginalized backgrounds included in this transformation. Otherwise, TVET reform will not work. The other study is a tracer study that has looked at our impact going back to 2011 to 2008. And again, it has revealed many achievements, but also some challenges too. The results we have been able to achieve today is a demonstration that TVET reforms can work. It's possible, one, to resolve the problem of underutilization of our TVET centers. Lamu is an example, Eldoret is an example, 140 other examples where you can go and they will tell you this is one of the very first things that has changed. It is possible to provide a demand-led skills training program to make it work by creating room for industry in the classroom. Again, some of you are the testimony of that. You are already working with employers in advance. Some of you are already commissioning market studies on your own. Mr. Mulai already mentioned some of the courses they did without us at all, without even GIZ. They decided, okay, we have learned, we know how this is done. And they went and did it. We have also shown that it is possible to stop the fact that our youth have been voting with their feet by not enrolling in vocational training institutions, in TVET generally. It's possible to actually reverse that, including reversing the negative perceptions that people seem to have about technical education by demonstrating value. They were walking away because there was nothing for them. They are walking back, actually flooding back every time we show that there is value for them. And we have been able to show that it is possible to get the same transition to employment or to earning, as we talk about it, as CAPYEI does. Lamu is getting 80% transition. CAPYEI is 75%. They have doing way, way better. And I'm sure it's going to be the same everywhere. That, I'm hoping, is going to be the journey of CAPYEI over the next 10 years. We are going to need you to make.
How do we take this youth from the streets, from the seashores, and come to the institutions? We work together with CAPYEI through road shows, mobilization, and as we talk today, Lamu Vocational has 888 trainees. We did a market scan. As we talk, the placement rate of hospitality class is almost 80%, meaning we are giving jobs to young ones. If you go to any hotel within Lamu, remember Lamu is a tourist city, I can call it, you'll not miss a trainee from Lamu Vocational Training Center in every hotel, meaning we have given a lot to the business world in terms of labor force. After training, what next to these trainees? Can they be able to secure jobs? Can they be able to start their own jobs? So we look at that component of mentorship, exposure visits, and we have a database of mentorship program. All the employers and all the partners we have, we come together and discuss how we can be able to give jobs to these trainees. Despite Lamu has a lot of opportunities, many youth don't have the requisite skills to do those jobs. And that is what we are giving in partnership with CAPYEI. Trainees have come to the institution. How can you retain them? How can you make sure they come to the institution every day? So before we started the training, the issue of now life skills induction came in. And we were able to retain these trainees. Along the way, we looked at now, we had about 4 courses, but they were not marketable. Trainees were not willing to study. So with the help of CAPYEI, we did a market scan. We looked at what is best in Lamu. And I can assure you we studied 2 courses. That is hospitality and marine courses. As we talk, the placement rate of hospitality class is almost 80%, meaning we are giving jobs to young ones. If you go to any hotel within Lamu, remember Lamu is a tourist city, I can call it, you'll not miss a trainee from Lamu Vocational Training Center in every hotel, meaning we have given a lot to the business world in terms of labor force. To wind up, we looked at another aspect. After training, what next to these trainees? Can they be able to secure jobs? Can they be able to start their own jobs? So we look at that component of mentorship, exposure visits, and we have a database of mentorship program. All the employers and all the partners we have, we come together and discuss how we can be able to give jobs to these trainees. And that one is working Lamu. Despite Lamu has a lot of opportunities, many youth don't have the requisite skills to do those jobs, and that is what we are giving.
Besides the training, CAPYEI has done a lot of other things. One of integrating life skills into TVET curriculum. That the result that we found from there, TVET CITAC is using them. In fact, it has assisted to try and review our material on life skills which we had added. Another one is what the employers think about soft skills. And what we found and the result that we came out with is extremely useful to the private, especially private sector. It is very, very important, especially when it comes to recruitment, especially fresh graduates, because then they know what to target. And it has been found that soft skills are the most important skills, more important than the technical skills for any employee. And it has been proved so that someone with the soft skills and especially the right attitude, that person can be converted to do anything in the industry. And that has proved to be very important, and is the one which has made some of the employees be retained in most companies. And the companies actually achieve a lot. The productivity is very high with the people who have the soft skills. In fact, of late, some of the companies are spending a lot of money to train their employees on soft skills. But then the recommendation we have given is that soft skills should be given by all training institutions, that the tertiary institutions, including universities, so that the companies should spend the money they spend for training people on soft skills on other things apart from the training. And we found that the recommendation which comes from the employer is that those soft skills, they should start earlier now from basic education. That means from primary and secondary, so that the students are well prepared to ready to even to work if they finish after Form 4. Because we have very many people in this country after the Form 4 is when they get employment. And therefore the soft skills are key in that they can now make the people be able to be involved in a more productive way to benefit the companies. But more than that, it also enables the graduates to be self-employed, because in this country we have a lot of resources which have not been exploited. So we would like to have the graduates not only to look for employment, because you see the best model which is given by CAPYEI produces, I would say, 3 people. An employee, someone who can be employed; an employer, someone who can also start a company and employ others; and an entrepreneur, someone who can start his or her own business. That means if we continue with that kind of model, then we are going to have 100% employment. Not just only 100%. We will need people from outside Kenya to come and work. But at the moment, we have so many youth. In fact, more than 40% are unemployed.
Young people deserve an opportunity to discover themselves and seek resources that would help them move from survival to security to growth. Whatever interventions have to be provided as supports for the young people to move forward should be aspirational, because that's how young people are made. The third is that it has to be very responsive, dynamic, not set in brick and mortar and saying this is the way we will do it. And so each country, each state, each place, each target segment has its own flavor, has its own personality. And so CAP has this 100 flowers blooming everywhere. So if you look at CAP working with the young people in the line of control between India and Pakistan, it looks quite different from those that are working with young people who are on and off the streets in the city of Hanoi or any other place, like after the Arab Spring in Egypt, or the young soldiers in South Sudan. So each place is different. When we started in Kenya, we were very clear that it has to be a Kenyanized model. And what is coming out is the Kenyan personality to this whole program. We are very grateful to MasterCard, because we were unknown, we were unheard of, and we were a big risk that they took to support us in 2011. I still remember the day in Toronto where we sat and planned the design for the first phase of the program. They went on to support us for the second phase. That shows that MasterCard had that vision to see us while we were dreaming of something, and they could actually see us far better than we could see ourselves. And we are equally grateful to the government and the county governments now, because this is very unique to CAP across the world that we work. The integration of the BEST model into CIBET is the ultimate test of any supportive instrument that can go in helping youth realize their livelihood objectives. And I think Kenya has now shown the way to the rest of the world, not just for the CAP world, but for anybody who's working in the youth sphere, that standalone programs are not a sustainable solution. We can reach to 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, 50,000, but there are millions that require this. And the only channel through which that can happen is the government. Not only in terms of scale, but also we cannot absolve governments of their basic responsibility. And so Kenya has come up with this very strong dynamic partnership opportunity that CAP has seized, and we are very, very fortunate to be in that wing. And a third very critical angle that's coming up in Kenya is the gender. Overall, worldwide, we have more girls participating than boys. But that's very natural, because if you put the CEO of the most marginalized and the most deserving, it will automatically go to the girls. But however, the number and the percentage of participation is not really the indicator. The quality of the outcomes of that participation is what we are keen on. And so this is an ongoing retrospection and a reflective practice that we are undertaking. We are hoping that this will inform the rest of the skilling world as well. The last but not the least is, as Ivy rightly said, it's not about earnings, it's not about income. It's about ability to move towards sustainable livelihoods while realizing their own innate desires, their talents, their capacities, and their potential. And so this mixed livelihoods concept that has come up in Kenya, where young people are testing themselves in both employment and entrepreneurship, moving from survival to security on a twin track, and then deciding whether they want to go full-time into employment or full-time into business, is an amazing evidence that is coming out of Kenya for the rest of the world. The one component that we would like to see, however, is the aspiration of young people to go back for higher education. While access to opportunities, while access to jobs, entrepreneurship, and things, life skills, ability to survive, sustain, and grow is all somewhat coming out, we still have a large gap that is being recognized as young people's aspirations to go for higher education, get better qualified, and move for higher profiles and higher opportunities.
For the past decade, we've worked with partners in more than 30 African countries to advance financial inclusion, education, livelihoods for young people. And to date, our programs have touched mainly Africa, but across the globe. Over the next decade, we will focus on the greatest issue of our time, an issue on the mind of every young person, every parent, and every head of state across Africa, across the world, and that is the issue of youth employment. Our new strategy, Young Africa Works, aims to enable 30 million young people across Africa, especially young women, find dignified and fulfilling work, which is why we're so excited to hear the gender report that CAPYEI has undertaken. Of course, we cannot do this alone. We're collaborating across the continent with governments, with the private sector, businesses, educators, and of course the young people who are at the center of everything we do and who have the most direct stake in the outcomes of what the foundation does. Together, we will execute Young Africa Works in 10 countries, of which Kenya is one. And this strategy is about transformation of the economy, of opportunity, and of how we solve problems together, co-designing programs that will help solve problems. In June of this year, His Excellency President Kenyatta announced the launch of Young Africa Works in Kenya. This is a private-public partnership between the government of Kenya, the private sector, and the MasterCard Foundation. This initiative will impact, to begin with, 5 million young Kenyans to find dignified and fulfilling work. To start, the foundation has committed 30 billion Kenya shillings to begin this work. Firstly, we're going to transform opportunities available to micro, small, and medium enterprises. This involves a range from access to credit, business development services, and mentoring to ensure that young entrepreneurs are able to take their businesses to the next level. Secondly, we'll be empowering Kenya's digital workforce, where we want to help realize the vision of the remarkable Ajira program, which we will support working with the private sector. And thirdly, a significant part of why we're here, we want to build on the good work already being done by the Ministry of Education through the State Department of TVET to fundamentally remake the training, of trades in Africa and to support CBET. We'll be advancing quality of instruction, and on-the-job training that will connect young people to industries. We believe that work is much more than making money. It's about dignity. It's about yourself, your family, your community, your country, your continent, and ultimately the world. It's about giving back to society and paving the way for those who will follow. We believe that when young people have the dignity of work, they are invested in their future, and therefore we are investing in the hopes of the young people. The Young Africa Work strategy is not about a number. It's about enabling young women and men to lift themselves into economic prosperity. And that is why we support the work of CAPYEI.
Based on a very successful program by CAPYEI that we'd like to further interrogate and as much as possible be inclusive to all your insights, your thoughts, your ideas. They indeed matter, primarily because of the current state of reforms and transformation of technical vocational training heavily relies on innovation and transformation. And this can only be achieved in the inclusivity that exists within this room from stakeholders from industry, from social sectors, from the public sector, from the civil society, from the training institutions themselves and from policymakers. And your contribution greatly promotes this. And it's one of those things that is absolutely essential as we find solutions, whether it be for the values that we try to promote with respect to creating greater access to technical vocational training, ensuring that our systems and our national systems together with the private sector have a far outreach to the very nerve of this country, encouraging the possibility that not only young women and men can participate in skilling themselves, but that we reach out to the very best in terms of those ambitions and that drive for transformation to have clear pathways and value enhancements for their growth and their development. But it's also with respect to equity, finding ways in which we're able to encourage women to participate, for example, and to ensure that we address aspects of stereotyping and to address the need to be as inclusive as possible for various reasons, not only for the person's ability to be free and to be open to try different areas of trade, but increasingly for the sake of our social, economic and environmental prosperity, which heavily depends on the diversity of all stakeholders, both women and men, to find solutions to promote their insights, their unique perspectives and thoughts. And it's this value too, with respect to equity, that we hold, that TVET is indeed inclusive to all, whether it's those that have not been to educational systems, academic institutions, or those that have graduated or happen to have changed their mind or circumstance through the academic mainstream, or to those that have finished but would like to gain an extra skill in order to complement their academic qualifications to progress effectively and far more productively in their choice of livelihoods. And it's also open to those that may have picked up skills through other forms of training, not necessarily academic or formal, but need to be recognized in order to ensure that those skills then are able to be upgraded or to be recognized for their competencies and thereby access labor market opportunities. And it's with this regard, ladies and gentlemen, that while we face up to the values of access and equity, and at the same time ensure that through all the training systems and the innovations we put, that training indeed is a quality-rich experience for young people to use those traits of energy and curiosity and creativity and resourcefulness to build things and to thereby create outcomes of success, whether it's a plumber or a painter or a mechanic or someone who's able to fix an aeroplane. That confidence and that student-rich experience to try and to be trained as efficiently as possible so that they yield the highest level of productivity is a core value and a core part of our value of ensuring that we create quality environments of training. And that is why models like the BEST and CAPYEI's efforts towards addressing the frontiers of innovation, technical vocational training, plays a significant role, not only in terms of policy making and the support that we need, but also in ideas and ways in which we can implement efficiently on this large-scale agenda. And that outcome of relevance too, which is absolutely critical as a value, and ensuring that we maintain the trainings and outcomes of trainings not only to the highest yield of productivity, but they are able to influence outcomes of productivity and innovation and efficiency that is so wanting currently within the industrial transformation of this country, and also the opportunities that exist by way of the Big Four agenda, all the different areas of opportunities that are now opening up and could create a link from where we are with respect to unemployment to employment.
Basically,
what we did was to trace the beneficiaries of the CAPYEI training program from the period 2011 to 2018. Essentially, the purpose of this was to establish, for instance, where most of the respondents or where most of the beneficiaries have come from as they joined CAPYEI, and then to determine where they are at the moment with a view to establishing what the employment outcomes have been and entrepreneurship outcomes, and whether they go into learning after the training. Besides that, we were to establish precisely what the impact of the training has been on this youth. And basically, we use a retrogressive approach so that we are looking at the youth at the present with a view to understanding what they were thinking or what their understanding was in terms of where they've come from and where they are at the time of the study. And we used what is that called the Kobo Collect platform. This is a mobile-based data collection platform, and this was then able to help us reach most of the youth that we thought it was important to reach out to. So that we had a sample of 1,214 respondents that we targeted. As you can see there, we targeted beneficiaries, we targeted trainers, we targeted project staff, and we targeted them through all using different tools and approaches. We were able to determine that most of the youth were aged between 18 to 25 years. And again, you remember this was actually the target group of the program, and therefore when we reached 81% of this, then we were able to confirm and prove that majority of the beneficiaries that we traced were actually within the age group that the project had purpose to reach out to. 52% of our respondents were male, 48% of them were female. Remember, the project purpose is that after training the youth, either they get employment, wage employment, or they establish their own businesses, or some of them continue learning. Very many of them are earning an income, as at the time we were carrying out the survey, up to 72% of them. Now, Kenya is not performing very well overall in terms of youth employment, because a country like Rwanda has only 1.6% unemployment, Uganda 2.7%, and Tanzania around 3.4%. And we established that of those who are able to earn an income now, 77.3% of all the males that we reached are currently earning an income, as opposed to only 68.7% of the females who are able to earn an income as at now. And of those who are earning an income, as at the time we were carrying out the study, there are more women who engage in wage or salaried employment than men. But again, there are fewer women than males who are in self-employment. We are also able to realize that there are certain courses that would lead to faster engagement in mixed livelihoods and self-employment than others. And again, it was interesting to establish that most of these are the courses that are taken by the women. We then were interested in determining how long it took before youth would get employment. We found that majority of those leaving are taking between 0 to 3 months before they first get employed. Others are taking up to 36 months. For example, security management, welding, security management, they took at least 100% of them take far shorter than the rest. For example, hair and beauty also take far shorter. We realize that this is so because, for instance, many of the youth would want to go into self-employment when they cannot quickly get wage or salaried employment. And again, in some of these areas like hair, beauty, and security, it's easier to go into your own self-employment. So it was most useful for those graduating between 2017 and 2018, where 97% of them said it was useful. And for those graduating between in 2015, only 13% of them found the trainings offered at CAPYEI useful to them when it comes to solving challenges or meeting challenges at the workplace. Of course, when the youth have left the program, CAPYEI endeavors to follow up to establish what they're doing. CAPYEI follows up probably to support them. And we are interested in understanding what the youth thought about the adequacy of the support that they receive from the program. Those who graduated in 2011, up to 95% found it adequate, while only 5% found it not adequate at all. A lot of times youth would be trained, but when they fail to immediately get a job in the area that they were trained in, some of them would opt to do anything that comes by. That is why 86% of them were saying they are doing something else because they have not been employed in the areas they were trained in. Another 3% of them said that it was because of lack of adequate skills in the trained areas. So apparently some of them leave the training without acquiring skills which would make them employable. 15% of those in self-employment are female and 25% of them are male. The gender inclusivity study found that of all those who are in employment, in self-employment, 23% were female and 16% were male. So those are the comparisons that we made across the different studies. We learned, for example, that some courses are highly marketable, because if you saw, for instance, there's some courses like plumbing where people got employed up to 100% immediately on transitioning from the training. We also established that the youth transition into wage employment immediately after training, but after some time, they'll either go into mixed livelihoods or self-employment. Again, the youth who have started businesses in the manufacturing sector have their businesses delivering higher profits than those who are in agribusiness or the service sectors. We are also able to learn that the male incomes tend to go higher, especially after training, as compared to the females' incomes. So we are recommending that the program increases enrollments into the marketable courses, like plumbing that we mentioned. We are also recommending that the entrepreneurship training be reinforced, because we have seen that most of the youth are interested in ultimately transitioning into self-employment, and more women need to be encouraged and to take the traditionally perceived male-dominated courses, because we've noted that these ones deliver higher income.
So when we think systems level, my question to you is, what is the one, and just the one, system disruptor that you believe is needed to transform the learning to earning trajectory for Kenya's youth? And I'll start off with Schmidt, because you bring some great insights from Canada.
We recognize that in the TVET and training and education youth sector, we have limited ability to influence job growth. We can contribute and we can link with that, but we can't necessarily directly create jobs. We can't directly cause GDP growth. We can't directly influence all of these things. We do it through an indirect means. In terms of where our influence lies, and going back to one, don't worry, there's just one kind of key thing, one disruptor. I think a key disruptor would be to really strengthen the flow of information to young people and their families. How do we better share labor market trends with them? How do we better share research findings with them? How do we better inform them about career opportunities and actual jobs that are out there, ones that have growth potential, earning potential, the profiles of different occupations, mentorship that relates to certain occupations. So again, it's the information flow. I think all of us in this room have a relatively good sense. We do a lot of studies, we do a lot of research. we go to institutions and communities, and the young people have very, very low awareness of what's happening in the economy, in the sector, in the labor market, and providing more information about that through institutions, through career guidance and structured information and data flow, I think would be a huge addition to the sector.
Most of the youth that we met during the Treasure study are interested in ultimately going into entrepreneurship, so that even as they get employed in the wage salary employment, then they're only doing that because they're looking for capital to start off their own businesses. But again, they're not able to do that because the finances are not available. The youth, for example, may not know where to get some of these finances, and even if they do, they're not able to, some of them are not creditworthy as to what the financial service sectors would be thinking. So the best thing would probably be to ensure that the youth, one, are financially literate, and two, they're then able to save, invest wisely with a view to enhancing their own businesses. But again, without avenues of financing the youth, probably coming from the government itself or from any other willing supporters, the youth would not be able to do much in terms of starting off their own businesses.
There's a supply and a demand situation, and building a supply of work-ready youth is one piece of the puzzle. But how do you get employers to drop the proxies that they're currently using to hire? Things like how many years work experience do you have? Youth are immediately at a disadvantage. Do you have a university degree? I think it's 8% of people in sub-Saharan Africa actually attend university. But these are all proxies for things like, can I trust you? Will you stick something difficult through until you graduate? You know, do other people in my network know you? How can we get them to hire for what they really want? And that's an education process as well. You need to walk them through a simple, cheap alternative to looking through CVs and just saying, okay, this one went to a good university, or this one had 7 years work experience, and show them something that's equally effective but more inclusive. And when you think about that whole ecosystem with government, communities, young people, employers, that's the one lever where if employers are finally hiring for competencies over credentials, then there's a almost cascading effect where young people, young job seekers will then say, I want to get trained on competencies as opposed to things that are not necessarily relevant to the work that I'll be doing, which will then tell schools, okay, if I want customers, and communities will be putting that pressure on schools as well, I need to train people for things that will make them successful beyond the 12 years that they spend with me. And there's almost this follow-on effect.
I think we may need to have what I call business development centers. The business development centers to incorporate an innovation and incubation unit where the graduates can be trained on innovation, how to innovate, and also to incubate their business from. And the Business Development Center, they can also assist even in getting even money for the starters. That's they can start with, because it will be a center which is just acting like an intermediary. So that, and at the same time, they mentor those graduates so that they can be able to start the business. Because the problem is actually, most people, when after they are finished, they look as if they are helpless. They don't know where to go. And therefore they need to be mentored. And this mentoring, it can only come from a center which has got all those experts in those areas. But then this center, it must be even supported by the government also and other development partners.
I can tell you one secret about CAPYEI's success. It's not something CAPYEI brought here, it's something young people in Kenya have. They are uniquely mobile. They are willing to go almost anywhere there is an opportunity to work very hard to show they are deserving of it. But we know that young men, young women are not mobile the same way. So we have many cases of young women actually not taking up an opportunity because they won't get permission to go to the next town, or because they have to take care of somebody sick in the family, or leaving a job because of demands that young men are not required to undertake. I believe that's one, but I'm happy that we should be able to have this conversation today after the other presentation, because I think it's really important. You said one disruptor. For me, it's not a thing, it's a policy. And that's competency-based education and training approach. If CBET works, organizations like CAPYEI will not need to be here. If when we came here back in 2011, we had CBET working, we would not have a job here. Just think about it, and the peers talked about some of the promises of CBET. The same things we are talking about there. They are now going to be mandated by law, market scan, market assessment before training, industry engagement. In fact, no curriculum will be approved unless industry approves it. The same thing CAPYEI has been doing. Mandated soft skills training. Every institution, every program will be required to integrate it. Even mandated preparation for work, including 100% internship opportunities. If CBET works, believe me, this is going to be not only disruptive, but it's going to probably be the most far-reaching policy the government of Kenya will have implemented. We have seen it where it works, and we have seen that that transformation is real. It's not a promise. It actually does work that way. And I can't wait to see it work. And that's why I mentioned today that we have actually made this commitment that for the next 5 to 10 years, CAPYEI is going to do all we can to help Kenya make CBET work.
And my last question is around skill set of young people. So as industries emerge and markets evolve, I think the question of market relevant skills will persist. My question is, in terms of staying ahead of the game and looking to the future, what skills do you believe that we as practitioners, technical specialists, policymakers, development partners, what skills should we be paying particular attention to in order to set up youth for success in their career?
The part that we have to really stress more is life skills. That is the major. With what we have seen, change of attitude is the problem we have right now with the young people, and not only young people, even almost everyone. So once we change that, then other things become very easy. And therefore, I would say that we need to stress on life skills or soft skills also.
This is where it might be a bit controversial. Whenever I see articles, whether it's in Kenya or Canada, that talk about Industry 4.0, artificial intelligence, automation, jobs of the future, I become very nervous. And I think it's a bit of hype. And you may expect people on a question like this to say, it's coding and digital skills and, as I said, AI and all of these things. Those are relevant. There's no doubt that those will play a role in the jobs of the future and the skills of the future. But for me, I think it's more about the system. None of us here have a crystal ball that can predict the jobs of the future. In Canada, we get it wrong all the time. We can't afford to get it wrong in Kenya. The stakes are a bit higher. The unemployment and the livelihoods issues are much more important. And so I think it's about the systems that help to be dynamic and to help align labor market and labor market changes with training. And as Ndungu said, CBET, the way in which we engage industry, bring industry perspectives into the development of curriculum, is a core element of that. For me, I'd go one step further and say it's about building a dynamic system for that engagement. We're at the early stages of CBET in Kenya, and I think there's tremendous progress in the last few years. What I would like to see now is a more dynamic system where we're not having to go through a complex, lengthy process of that employer engagement, and that we look beyond just the national councils and the national engagement with industry, and to say, how do we have more frequent engagement between industry and training institutions at the local level? How do we capture the voices of the MSME sector into that, and not just a few key national employers? And through building that system, we can ensure that regardless of the industries of the future and the skills changes, that training providers can rapidly shift. And I might be wrong, who knows, in 5 years maybe everyone will be employed in AI and I'll sit here with egg on my face. But I think that for me it's about the system and ensuring that it's dynamic. There's a few things as well that I think government can help lead the charge on. We do have in Canada a Future Skills Council that we sit on as an organization, Future Skills Centre, and a lot of that is about building that dynamic relationship between industry and the training and education side.
Kenya is a raw material exporting economy. We take things, we send them overseas, somebody processes, brings them back, and I believe that is reflected by the small manufacturing sector that we have, and you saw that in the numbers again today. And the other thing, I don't know whether people noticed, missing a huge elephant in the room, agriculture. This country is importing $100 million worth of food beginning last year. And most of those are staples that we used to be self-sufficient in. Actually, we used to have a surplus we used to sell to the neighbors. Essentially, we can't feed ourselves. The average age of a Kenyan farmer is between 59, I think, and 64 now. What does that tell you? That we are missing a huge opportunity on the one side, saying there are no jobs, and the people who we are waiting to produce the food that 47 million of us need to eat are increasingly feeble because of age, and I believe that's something we have to address as a matter of urgency.
This is true, we're preparing people for jobs that might not exist. We know that with automation, there are fewer people employed in factories, there are fewer people employed in farms, etc. But even our own jobs, right? We know that doctors and lawyers, these kind of more routine jobs, they are most susceptible to automation. There's all of these things happening. At the same time, we're sitting on what could be the most incredible resource, this rising youth population. But it could also mean that we have a resource that's not necessarily being used anymore or as much in the world of work. And so I think the focus needs to be, and this is a little bit sci-fi, but we need to start thinking this way. What makes us uniquely human? What value can we actually add? And I've been hearing talks about the second digital divide. The first digital divide was between people who had access to mobile phones and technology and people who didn't. The second one is between people who can pay attention and can persevere through tasks and switch their phones off, and people who can't. And I think, it's becoming clear that these things are addictive, etc. But how can we teach young people today about attention and make them part of that group of humanity that can actually still continue to do these tasks that we increasingly struggle to do. So that's something that's been playing in my head. No firm answers yet, but I think it's really worth exploring.
In Kenya, the formal sector employs only about 23% or provides only 23% of the available workforce. So it then implies that we must be able to train our youth so that they're able to employ themselves. By that, then it suggests that we must provide them with enough technical skills, and with those technical skills, we must again add enough business skills so that they're able to run their own businesses and be able to provide their livelihoods based on that. Because if we train youth with a view to having them be employed in other sectors, then this would not help much. Because the formal sector is only able to employ about 23% of those who are joining the labor market. So that with self-employment as the key driver, then the youth who we are training would be able then to find livelihoods as we plan for them. Thank you.
How do we quantify soft skills in a scalable way? Because if we can do that, employers are using the level of science that they know, which is playing in, I think, the safest way. With that, they look at an individual that has worked in a certain industry, an individual that has worked for a certain number of years, and the likes. So if we can quantify how to establish soft skills and say that truly we can bet and show that young people can be as productive as these people that are qualified, then again employers are ready to listen to that.
We have been doing soft skills long before even we came to Kenya. It has been part and parcel of our DNA, actually mandated by young people themselves. the needs of vulnerable young people. And we have developed and sometimes just adopted, stolen tools, which we now own, that we use to try to quantify soft skills. In fact, one of them is called the Individual Youth Development and Learning Plan. We provide soft skills for the first time at induction stage 4. That's a 6 to 8 day program that is meant to help a young person identify what value he or she can get from the program that they are about to embark on. But it doesn't stop there, then it's reinforced throughout, and one of the biggest ways of reinforcing it is that tool. It's a simple table that just takes the behaviors that are taught at step 4 and then requires young people to show on a daily basis that they are modeling those behaviors. And they are actually rated from 1 to 5 based on each behavior, about 15 different factors. And then we have a way of reinforcing good changes, because those who do well, their scores are posted on the wall for everybody sees. And when there are opportunities, they get fast call, for example, for those choice internship links, which they fight for normally. But you have a way of showing that you are deserving of it by showing that change. Recently, we carried out a research with Professor Ondiek and Charlene Mudhoni. I don't know where she is around here. We did a research actually that asked the same question. And we identified that around the world there are more than 15 different ways of measuring soft skills, and our recommendation, in fact, from that research was that Kenya should probably look at what is most easy to replicate and adopt it. We don't have to create something new. And that same survey also identified the 5 top soft skills that employers in Kenya require. And I'm not going to go through them, but encourage you to take a look. That research is available on our website. You can download it. It's not just for employers, but for people like us who are now trying to train young people whom employers will value and employ.
By the end of January 2019, I started up a business. It's a fast food business. The business is a registered one with the name Amandla's Food Parlor. It's located in Nakuru, Kenlands area. I finished up my studies and went for internships at Eco Palace Hotel, a 3-star hotel in Nakuru. And I went there to add more skills. I later came back to my business. I've been able to employ 2 CAPYEI alumni. One is specifically based in potato peeling, while the other one helps as a steward. I've been managing the business on my own, and I would like to thank the entire CAPYEI team, and may God bless MasterCard Foundation.
Whenever we analyze a project, or rather we do an evaluation, the guiding questions of the data and the analysis is based on how do you want to use the results. And so, I won't go into a very long detail, but there is a process called utilization focused evaluation. We collected data from 33 CAPYEI institutions across all the 5 regions in Kenya: Nairobi, Mount Kenya, Western, Central, Rift, and the Coast region. 520 students, or graduates, 60% female, 40% male. And this was based on when we asked for, what we did ask CAPYEI, give us all the graduates that have ever gone through here, so that from here we now follow them up, talk to them, and find out how they're faring, and what is it that they went through while they were in CAPYEI that would have made a difference. Because that was the process. It's not out there, it's what can CAPYEI do that's within its control. When we look at the graduates that we were given, the alumni, the most populated, because the institution provides training for about almost 16 or almost 20 courses. But the most populated were this that you see up there: hospitality, that's what we call the service industry most of the time, security, automobile repair, electrical, hair and beauty, building, construction, and industrial garment and manufacturing. We also, of course, talked to my CAPYEI management staff, because, how the institutions and the centers are managed, how the training is conducted, it was very critical. So we wanted to understand, apart from hearing from the alumni, how is it that they do, how is it that they manage the institutions, the training and the centers to make that difference, to contribute to that trajectory that was reported by UMN. First of all, the population of the study group. What we focused a lot on those 12,000, that was our samples, like if you look at the extreme right. And these 12,000 alumni have been supported by the 3 programs, MasterCard Foundation, EU GIZ, EU and GIZ. Now, it doesn't mean that this was the entire lot. This is the ones that we decided to follow up to establish how that is happening and what are the factors that are contributing. MasterCard alone has supported from that program, from that lot that we got, 9,365, and you can see the proportion. Already, you can see immediately, the females are more than the males of the alumni that we visited. We focused a lot on the model where CAPYEI has got control, and this is what they're calling the demonstration and replication centers. So you had the figures in the morning saying they've supported 57,000 youth, but the MasterCard, through MasterCard, CAPYEI has actually supported 26,000 youth directly through their demo and replication centers. The balance to make 57 are the ones which have been trained through the capacity building model, where CAPYEI does not do the training, but they support the TVET institution, the TVET colleges to do the training. That's why we have the figure of 57,000. In the phase that's going on right now, 16,000, although quite a bit of them have not yet graduated. So if you look at the alumni that we visited, again, we looked at the figures earlier on. You can see hospitality is the most dominant, followed by security guards, automobile repairs, hairdressing, electricals, and building construction, and then this industrial garment manufacturing. There are, of course, the others: clearing and forwarding, refrigeration, floriculture, plumbing. You guys are talking about, can you get a plumber? Can you see the reason why you can't get a plumber? The fact that there are very few graduates who have come through the plumbing course through this is a bit disturbing. The fact that we really look for plumbers. I tell you, I come from Kisii. When I go there and my mom, or rather my sister, tells me I have a plumbing problem, it takes me 2 days to find one who has to cross 2 counties to come to my house, which is quite disturbing, despite the fact that we've got graduates around there who are looking for jobs. We have welding, metal fabrication, and home care. Now you can see hospitality dominated by the ladies. So we collected the data from those 7 most populated courses. Let's do this. Let's compare the youth. Maybe the problem starts even before they join CAPYEI. Let us first of all ask them, before you joined CAPYEI, what was your status? Because probably that's where the bearing was. Probably that's where the problem starts from. How are you faring? What were you doing? Okay. No, one thing is all of them, a good proportion of them, 80%, had attained at least their primary school certification. And the tracer study confirms that. In fact, for them, the tracer study says from the population that they did, over 90% had actually got primary school certification before joining CAPYEI. Many were single, 90% female, 94% male single. So 10% married. Okay. Tracer study points out actually it was almost just about the same number. Most did not have, okay, let's say it's not that they didn't have skills. They were doing something, but they didn't have trained skills. Okay. Most of them, 2/3 of them. 75% of the females didn't have any skills before they trained. So I don't know where you could start to see where the problem is, but because you see already there's a bearing. 65% of the males say, we had something. 75% of the male, we didn't know much. We asked them, okay, what were you doing, or what kind of skills could you claim you had before you joined the training? And you can see the skills listed by the females: computer packages, basics of hair plaiting, customer service, data clerks, babysitting, daycare. And the males, as you can expect, you can see the difference, metal welding, border. The difference between these 2 professions or these 2 occupations, CAPYEI had nothing to do with this. They went and recruited youth, and these are the youth that they got coming to the program. 10% of the female alumni were already caring for their own children. They're already single mothers, caring for children. Married with single mother, but already they had children. Let us use now the space within which CAPYEI has control on what can they do, what difference can they make. So CAPYEI was interested. Why are we doing this analysis? Because we want to know how do we do our best model to reduce that difference, make sure that both the male and the female have the best shot, get skills and have best shot, getting opportunities and getting trained and earning as well as they can. So we adopted the best, we used the best model because that's where we want to send messages to, or rather we try to develop recommendations for CAPYEI to adopt. One of the first things that CAPYEI does is carry out a study with employers. If we were to pick youth from our population, our target community beneficiary population, and train them, what opportunities would you provide them? And that is carried out through this market study. It just reveals on what skills are required at that particular locality, that training center at that particular time. And those studies were not really said, this is what the women should do, this is what the men should do. It was just what's available, which is a very good approach by CAPYEI, because CAPYEI was not trying to only look for good jobs for males and good jobs for females. It's just what is available, what can you employ? So the studies did not reveal any difference in the way they were designed. Then they revise or they review the training content using curriculum development STEP to make sure that whatever they're going to train the youth is in line, first of all, with the skills that have been demanded by the market or by the employers that they visited, but also in line with the curriculum development, the CDAC guidelines, because this is government set, which they made sure that they were compliant. Again, there are no male jobs, no female jobs, and the CDAC guidelines are also gender blind. There is no courses better designed for females or males. After they've designed the course, they do recruitment. Now this is where they identify the youth who are supposed to come to the programs. And they call them road shows, but actually it is promotion of the course, trying to invite the youth to come for training. Various methods are used: public meetings, flyers, brochures, community leaders in churches, spiritual centers. Now, there is again equal approach to the way both the male and female are approached. There was no separation. Unfortunately now, this is where the problem starts. The final intake of the youth that come to the CAPYEI centers depends on the numbers that show interest, turn up, and qualify. This is something beyond CAPYEI's control. They do the promotions, very neutral, but the numbers that they finally get on board, because they have a selection process, will depend on the numbers that show up, turn up, and qualify. Now, this is some of the observations you got from the center managers in the field. It is becoming increasingly difficult to get the male youth centers. Why? Because male trainees, the male candidates, were already engaged in livelihoods that did not make them easily available for the training. For example, you find them already doing border, working as casual laborers. They were not very keen on a day-long training process. And most of them requested, is it possible to do a part-time so we don't disrupt our work? Now, in some communities, there is already a limitation to the extent to which some of these youth, especially the female youth, can be allowed to move for the training. And one of the programs they have has got a portable model where they take the training to where the community is set to make it easy for the female to attend. For example, this was already observed in a program, again, funded by MasterCard Foundation and ODI in Tanzania. Mobility is limited, especially once they're married. They don't have access to training or work. That's something we also observed. Once the youth are recruited, they come to the center. And among the first sessions they have with the training centers is what they call step 4, the induction process. This is one step, or this is one train, the life skills training, that is so highly appreciated by the youth. You heard the girl talking in the morning. For those soft skills made me confident. They made me know that I can be something I didn't know I could be. And this is something that I think a step that's critical to whoever is going to carry out this best model. Look at what CAPYEI does and do it even better. The youth are trained in life skills and personal growth. Rated highly positive by all the alumni. Addressing all their fears. I am a girl, I am poor, I am an orphan. Okay? I have got a large family. I am a drug addict. This is one step that actually more psychologically really helps them settle down so they can continue the training. And this is a step that I think every center should really try and bring up. I wish they could do this in our universities at the same time. I'm sure they are not doing that in a very dedicated way the way CAPYEI is doing. Again, they do not separate the way they do the induction courses for the males and female. Okay. Now, what we found that sometimes some of the center trainers organize informal social girl talk sessions, how to deal with relationship, pregnancies, balancing, taking care of kids and stuff like that. But we found out this is not an institutional policy. It is actually based on a center manager assessment of the youth who have come on board and how best they can help them settle. So, are you okay? Don't worry, you'll be okay, we'll be taking care of you and stuff like that. So, like I said, the soft skills is addressing fears, especially for girls, how to fit the class, given the economic background, age, mixed gender in some classes. You're going to be with boys and girls, are you okay? I think one time I was in Nyanza, the capacity building and model. I found somebody saying, I'm in the same class with my son, and how is that going to work out? I said, don't worry, it's okay. Everybody's coming here to learn a skill. Don't worry whether you are a retired 60, 70-year-old man and you're in the same class with a teenager who's just 17 years old. Okay. Now, they also use this inventory test to gauge which youth should go to which training. It's a specialized developed tool where they look at the youth background and interest and scores and then direct them to which skills, which training that they should go to, based, of course, on the market study they did earlier. And this is the time when most of them get allocated their first choices. And many were satisfied. Many were said, the first course I did, I was happy with it. Now, the only problem is here, okay? This is again reported by Tracer Study, Brains Consult, 26% career guidance from CAPYEI, 37% selected courses based on guidance from their parents and friends, and 26% actually that's what they wanted to do. The girl said she wanted to do food business because she wanted to run a chips business. So she had a choice, she had freedom to select to actually go for training that Margaret did the training because she wanted to do chips business. So it's not necessarily that they are forced to do a particular course. Sometimes they're also allowed to do what they want to do. And then they are placed into peer groups. The peer groups the alumni reported actually they were very useful in especially addressing gender-oriented fears and limitations. Because these peer groups is the same age, talking to each other, same economic background, and again, they were mixed. There was no female peer groups, there's no male peer. They tended to be mixed, addressing anybody's concerns and limitations. In the classroom, which is step 5, what about the classroom? Are there like separate classes for boys and girls? Are there separate courses? Are they given, work that's lighter or harder? The male, female are handled the same way. There's no difference. Okay. Now the thing is, actual placement depends on the employers. And CAPYEI has no control on the numbers and the gender that goes to which employer. The employers dictate. If the employers here, this is where you start now giving us a bit of a hassle. Okay. So as much as the CAPYEI is making this, graduates have qualified, they have the qualifications required, please take them up. They will be taken depending on the market that's available. I want so many security guards and it must be a female. Or I want an automobile repair or a building construction or a bartender and it must be a male. And we found very interesting observations. I mean, we asked, for example, why do you prefer male bartender? It's because he has to deal with drunkards. Okay? If somebody brings problems, I need somebody who can be able to throw a man out. I can't get a lady for that. So this is where you see the employers now have to go, they dictate on who goes where. Okay? And employers perpetuate that perception that, jobs are only suited for males or females. And that perception continues, and I think this is one thing we might have to discuss this afternoon. How do we reduce that reality? So here's our recommendations. Starting with market scanning for CAPYEI. And if not CAPYEI, now that we are moving a model where CAPYEI is going to provide support to the other centers taking this up, we think when it comes to gender or how to support both male and female, market scanning should consider are there unique gender perceptions, interests, and needs so that we can strategically develop the skills. Okay. And CAPYEI should continue to address and challenge the perception that there are gender-specific differences or gender-specific matching of jobs. Course choice. CAPYEI should address and minimize gender stereotyping into soft and hard courses and the resulting preference by youth and society. CAPYEI should encourage men and female trainees to take up any course as long as they're interested, feel suited, and qualified. And if possible, invite counselors to help with this. During classroom training, I think I should have mentioned the induction soft course training was very useful. Apart from that, the formation of peer groups to address the gender challenges. Trainees should be made aware of the gender-based employment challenges. Provide social support to the female students and alumni, learning or working while taking care of their families, and continuous training to how to deal with gender-based harassment. Now, and then please pay a lot of attention to entrepreneurship training. Many female were interested. They saw that if I can't sustain myself in a job, at least give us the skills to do small businesses. And we think this is what CAPYEI should build upon. Find a way of fitting it with the best model. Maybe make they're already doing that, but I think pay a little more attention to that, especially for all the youth, not just the females. Sustain the interest and increase training in necessary knowledge and skills. Where possible, business clubs. At the same time, the peer groups are being formed. Post-training support, implement the sexual harassment, or at least try and see the extent to which their sexual harassment policy should be implemented. And it's good to note that CAPYEI has taken actions against trainers involved in sexual harassment. Okay. In general, we think that this varied trajectory development should be made public. This is something that I think should be made widely aware to all the youth, to the parents, the community, to trainers and employers, that there is a variation, and it's important to make sure that there is equal training opportunities and equal employment for everybody.
And either because of controllable or uncontrollable causes, women take more to entrepreneurship. And I think it's a good transition, because then she's able to take charge on her own.
We have been talking today about the CBET framework and about how we are hoping to transform this country by changing the way we do TVET. And the CBET framework is going to mandate, already is mandating, a very intense engagement between skills providers and employers. Employers, these same market representatives of the market that is hostile to young women. If you were to give advice to the group here, just one thing that we could do, either as individual organizations or together, that within reasonable means could help change that situation.
In terms of the market hostility, that is something that we continue to grapple with, because one of the things that I would have actually liked to see in the study is where is the private sector's voice in this? Because one of the things that, in as much as we are talking about the interventions to both the girls and the boys, and we do not actually discriminate, we find that all of them are going through the same courses and making and getting placed into the same jobs. But private sector, we have found that some of them come and say we want girls for this job or we want boys for this job. But one of the things that we keep on also wanting to understand, we haven't done a tracer study or anything, something that we are looking to is what are some of the policies in the workplace that employers or the private sector actually support and see through. We work with a lot of private sector. The questions that we keep on being asked, even by potential funders or donors, is how do we ensure that the gender issues are addressed? Do we have to go in, for example, in the CBET framework, to put in some of these things, like do we do a gender audit? So we work with associations. We are members of associations, the CAPYEIs of this world, the Kenya Association of Manufacturers of this world, the American Chamber of Commerce or the French Chamber of Commerce. They come together roundtable, but one of the things I've not had is a focus on this whole question of gender. It's very well for us to speak about it here, but are we talking to the right people? Because this is where we are placing these our young people, and can they also contribute to the CBET? Is there a gender component there that the private sector can actually take on and on board and run with it?
What we need to understand is that we cannot reach gender equality unless we address equity. And when I say equity, I'm saying about all the problems, the barriers, social and cultural, that girls and women face. And therefore, whether you belong to a certain religion or an ethnicity, or you come with a less educational background, or less privileges, problems with mobility, these are the factors that remain as barriers, including the reproductive role. So how do you reach equality? So equity will tell you what are some of the things that you need to do. And so if we look at equity, then we can address equality. What would that mean? Well, firstly, addressing your question. If you're planning to expand your program, we have to understand that society, employers, the trainers, the parents, community, all of them have certain gender roles, gender stereotypes in their minds, and they are consciously and unconsciously passing them on. The girls and boys themselves also have. So my recommendation would be to have a very strong gender component curriculum within the life skills that you already promote. There are certain practical needs of women that have to be addressed. So if it is mobility, can you have safe transport? It's childcare, how can you support that childcare? If there's maternity leave, how should that not be penalized? So if you go on maternity leave, I don't want you, and you better drop off. So these are larger concerns that we need to address of the practical needs of women. And of course, along with that, we are talking about what do men do? Why aren't they stepping up to support the family and the caring and the reproductive roles that both of them need to share? So my recommendation is to have a very strong gender component for the different stakeholders. So have a multi-pronged strategy, because we are dealing not with just one vocational training of 3 months. We are actually trying to change the mindsets of all the people who are involved in this program. And it also includes the girls and boys.
One of the things that the industry can do is to greatly be involved, which we have done in the development of our curricula. We have had sector advisory committees drawn from the industry. And you see, when the industry begins understanding where we are coming from, when even the gender analysis report was being shared, the industry was involved, we invited them, then they start becoming gender responsive. And so we are saying part of the government policy could be that they can give some tax rebates to industry that can be able to take up more women where there are more men, or more men where there are more female. That is one recommendation we've made in this report. We have also said that when it comes to attachments and internships, we can have targeted attachments and job placements for either female trainees or male trainees, depending on the inequality. Because what we want is for both male and female to have equal access. If it comes to equipment, like the training equipment, what CAPYEI program is providing to the national polytechnics, the equipment will be gender sensitive, such that if it's a lady taking automotive engineering, they do not have to feel that they do not have the masculinity to lift that engine from a vehicle. There will be powered tools that can enable women to do what men can be able to do in terms of the strength that is needed in that. So there is a lot of recommendation that the gender analysis report has given. You can access it through the Colleges Institute's website, and that can give you a deeper understanding of most of these things that we have talked about. At the National Polytechnic level, we found out that most institutions are gender policies, and they were not in use. So it's a high time now the institutions need to review their gender policies, their sexual and harassment policies, so that they may not be gender blind.
The impact of the earning of the girl is far better on the family than that of the boy. The boys always spend money on other things, the girls spend it back on the family. And the way boys save, and it is true, I'm not saying it out of prejudice, and I'm not saying, I think it comes innately because of the caregiving DNA that has been pushed on us over the years, a cultural construct, as you rightly said, Sunil. So, so that's the reason why the focus now is shifting to girls to say, while they are giving so much, are they getting enough? We had problems of getting Muslim girls into the program, and for them, it was a taboo to go and participate in programs like this. So what we did was we talked to the mothers who said that I don't want my daughter to be like who I am. I want my daughter to be able to stand on her own feet, and don't want her to be badly off when the husband decides to take his second, third or fourth wife. So we then asked the mothers, what should we do to get your daughters into the program? They told us that the person who can actually influence them is the mullah of the madrasa. They said, we have no voice. Don't say we told you. But just go talk to the mullahs. And that's how so we probably have to look at levers like that at every point. We have to look at levers for colleagues to treat their girls better, levers for bosses to treat better, levers for HR managers to be more equitable and fair. So I think this is a much larger issue that we have to deal with. But one of the core things that we must take home is that if the girl has at any given point of time the ability to assess her options and decide on taking a decision or a status decision that is not going to make it retro, that's not going to push her back, I think she's on the path to development, and I think higher education, higher profiles, higher opportunities will give her that flexibility.
The choice to drop, was it the girls or somebody else? Actually, it is actually beyond their control. It is pressure that I cannot continue staying in this position because of who I am or what has happened to me. And so that's really beyond their control, and they choose to go and stay at home. Now, are they better or worse? They are better. All the alumni we met were eternally grateful to CAPYEI. Eternally. Whether they were working or not, they say it made a big difference to their lives. You can rest assured that there's no alumni who regretted ever stepping into your centers. They talk especially most about how it affected their psychological mindset. That, it's not the technical skills really that made a difference. It is self, yeah, exactly, that's the word, the self-worth. If we were to support CBET, and especially take up this model, what big, major system change will make a difference? And I think the best tips, that was a very good model. And I like the fact that you've perfected it out of experience. Market scanning. It is still possible to identify opportunities and business opportunities, not just employment opportunities, that can suit everyone, whether it's a male or a female, based on not just their technical skills, but also on their character. I don't know how to bring that out, because employers sometimes are not even looking for the technical ability. They are looking for a certain character. For example, the levels at which they get employed. If you go to almost all the businesses, who is behind the counter that's in charge of money? It's a girl. Okay? Why? It's not because the man can't do it. It's because they're more trusted. And somehow there is something of the assessment we need to bring into market scan assessment that has nothing to do with technical skills, but more with character skills. What kind of person do you need for this employment? So that equalizes the opportunities that girls can take up much more than the boys.
I've picked up 3 things from this panel, just listening to the discussion that was going on. And one is that we need to have the private sector in the room. These are the employers. We need to have them in such discussions. And for me, from experience working in private sector, the person who you want in the private sector is the person who has the biggest stake in that business, and that's the owner of the business. So it's really important for us to see that we are looking into what are those challenges and how can we leverage on how do we ensure that both genders are really equitably represented, but also consider that there are some who have been more disadvantaged and probably need some extra support. And the third area is that in our intervention, I believe it would be very important for us to put into place and consideration psychosocial issues in such a way that what are those other considerations we need to put into place beyond just thinking of we are providing an economic opportunity for somebody, but to look at what are those other barriers and challenges that are there that might not enable us to achieve our objectives.
I used to sell borehole waters. I met a frequent customer who he told me he was a beneficiary of CAPYEI. So he told me about the programs. I did not waste time. I went to Mikindani, asked for a chance. They gave me. And after the life skills and the interest inventory tests, I was placed to a clearing and forwarding course. For 3 months vigorous training, I finished the course and got an attachment at the Kenya Ports Authority. During my attachments, an opportunity for internship arose in the logistics department. I said I will not waste time. I went for it. I applied. God is really good. I got that opportunity. So while in the internship in the logistics department, I decided to show them that I was an all-round student. I used to work beyond the normal time of the interns. And that one really pleased the management. And when the chance for junior safety inspector arose in the safety department, all the management were very happy to second me to go there. So currently I'm a junior safety inspector. What I earn, I can say I'm earning right now, and what I earn is very enough for me to save, to help my family. My mother nowadays no longer eats once or twice per day. He has 3 meals per day. I have a step-sister and a step-brother who are in high school. It's me paying for their school fees. And most importantly, I always thank God because it's almost making my lost dream come true. You know, missing the chance of going to university, and I was within the cut-off points. Currently, I've enrolled for a diploma in industrial safety, and it is my wish that when I finish my diploma, I will now go back to that particular degree I missed.
There are some of the things that were highlighted in today's interaction, that going forward, in your 10-year plan, in your strategy, there are things that we need to start thinking of. Looking at how do we manage those? How do we challenge some of those things? One example is that you have realized and you have seen that perception is a key thing among our youth, community, including our employers. So in your strategy going forward, you have to come up, or rather, coming up with strategies to, especially to reduce the stereotyping of our sectors or employment or industries. Now, another thing that is of emphasis here is reinforcing entrepreneurship training. And Margaret, one of our alumni who actually narrated her journey, since joining and leaving CAPYEI, you can see now she has employed two alumni or youth who came from alumni. Now, you can imagine if that is the model where you have at least one employing 2 or 3 graduates from CAPYEI, you know, if you have like 1,000 of such students or such alumni, now that will transform into a bigger, now what you call now employability, now into both in employment and entrepreneurship. And another thing, this is a challenge to every one of us here, is that everyone has a role to play. And actually, when that was mentioned, I was asking myself, we are talking about not allowing our women, I'm married to one wife with 2 children, and I was putting myself to a situation where I'm allowing her to go a further district to work. You know, it has to start, so we need to change. So everyone has a role to play, including some of ourselves, or we call ourselves professions. Now you can imagine if I don't allow my wife to go out to work, what will happen, or what kind of a decision that Shu Shaina, who is making 500 shillings a day, him allowing, or them allowing women to work, you know. So it's a challenge to every one of us. And also, including that as a role to play, there is that market hostility, which also came out, that also private sector, what are they doing to that? Going forward, that is something that we need to address. Now, there is also need to have a country manual, and that was presented as to set standards as a country for use, especially to support our youth in capacity building and transitioning from learning to earning, and so that we have we have a guideline or irreducible minimum, so that we have a standard that is so that as a country, so we have to be in our local context as a country to have that particular country manual that can help us or guide us going forward in supporting our youth.